Got some maintenance on the 22 Honda CRF150R. Front sprocket and rear sprocket change, the chain, rear brake pads, and oil change. So here are the parts. There's the rear sprocket. We got the rear brake pads. Oh, looks like the front sprocket is missing. Okay. Never mind that. There's the chain. Still looking for the front sprocket. Got our oil, Honda 1030. Okay. We got oil filters, high temp grease for another project. And still looking for the front sprocket. Front sprocket was never found in the box, but we did get another one ordered. Alright, first step I like to do is pull your oil fill plugs off. Alright, so here we're taking out the crankcase oil. This bike has 2 drain plugs and 2 fill plugs, one for the crankcase and one for the transmission. Oh yeah, look at it dripping down the frame there. It's going to be fun to clean later. Next, we're pulling the oil from the transmission. This bolt was really long for the transmission, and someone didn't want to get their hands dirty even though they're working with oil and grease. Oh yeah, be a man, use your hands. Now we're going to take the bolts off to access the oil filter and replace it. Always like to replace the oil filter every time I change the oil. Now we're going to take our new oil filter and insert it back where it belongs. The oil filter is back in. Now we're going to put the cap on, put the bolts in, and tighten them to spec. We're also going to tighten the transmission drain plug to spec. Now that the oil filter is in and the drain plugs have been tightened back up, now it's time to add oil back into the bike. We're going to start with the oil on the crankcase side. Now that the crankcase side has enough oil, time to pull oil in the transmission case. got a little bit of a spill here. Gotta get some rags and clean that up. Now that's all cleaned up, we can finish adding the oil, and make sure we're careful when putting the oil inside the bike. Now that the oil change is done, it's time to work on the chain and sprockets. First, we're going to take off the front sprocket guard. Now we're going to take apart the master link and get the chain pulled off. Man, look at how worn out that rear sprocket is. Glad we're replacing it. Weeky needs help with the mallet here to break the rear lug nut loose. Someone should teach him about leverage. Push! Nice try, Weeky. He's back with the mallet again. Yep, just beat on it. That works too. Hey, good job. Broke it free. Now that the axle nut has been removed, we can now remove the axle. Seems to be struggling here. Ooh, no grease on it. That's the problem. Don't worry, we can fix that. Now that we got the wheel out, it's time to remove the bolts that hold the rear sprocket in and replace it. Here we have a comparison of the old and new sprocket. The new sprocket is back to stock gearing with a 50-tooth rear. The old sprocket had a few less teeth, that's why it looks smaller, but it's also really worn out. Now we're going to put the new sprocket back on. sprocket, it's time to tackle the brake pads. We have to take this pin out first, so then we can take the brake pads out of the brake caliper. Oh man, check out these brake pads. They are worn out. See, here's a comparison between the old and new brake pads. Now that pin, we're gonna add a little bit of lube to it. We're also gonna lube up the rear axle, as that was dry and it needs some lube. So we're gonna just throw a little bit of lube on and we'll be good to go. Got the new brake pads in, now it's time to put the rear wheel back in. Alright, we got the rear wheel in, got the axle in, now we're going to put the chain on. Got the master link in there and all lubed up. Now it's time to connect it and put it back together. As you can see, we're going to putting the pin in here for the master link. Now, after straightening up and making sure the chain is straight, we're going to torque the rear axle nut to torque spec. So a few weeks after we finished up recording, we got a replacement front sprocket and got that installed. Alright, got the rear sprocket, new chain, front sprocket, oil change done. She's ready to rip now. Thank you for watching. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe.